Hi, this is information about your group project that you and your partner are going to be working on. You're going to be working with a fictitious family named Jacob, Julie, and their three children, Jacob Jr., Sarah, and Isaac. Now, Jacob and Julie are somewhat of a typical family in that they both work. Um, they actually have pretty good income, but not out of line with incomes locally with a lot of the oil field jobs. And unlike any of you, they're just not good with their money. So hopefully you and your partner will be able to help them adjust their income to meet the needs of the family while meeting their goals of saving some money and to eventually buy a home. So we'll go ahead and look at the project. You have a handout called Can This Marriage Be Saved? The typical family in America that fight over one thing. So this is right straight out of everyday life. Families fight about money. You know, they come to the marriage with different goals, with different understandings, different objectives, and the number one thing that couples tend to fight about is money. And that's why we're using this as a case study. If you want to refer to your textbook, the Drake family budget was a budgeting exercise that we used, and that was about a couple before they had children, when they were still in school, and after they had been married. And it's a good example of a budget. I'm not saying that you need to copy that in any way, shape, or form, but we did that as an exercise in class, so you may want to apply it. Basically, Jacob and Julie were married after high school. They've been married for 10 years and they have 3 children. And recently, Julie went back to work, and the youngest child is no longer in daycare, so they do not have the cost of daycare. And yet they're still having money trouble. And it causes a lot of fighting in the family because they haven't reached their goals. One of the things that they always thought they'd have by now, they're both going to be 30, is that they would have a home of their own. They're still paying rent and they don't have any savings. In fact, they're $24,000 in debt. And because they have a good income, the couple is not going to get any payday bonus around income tax time. You know, if you make 40 something thousand, and you're a married couple with 3 children, you could get an earned income tax credit. But that's not true with this couple. They don't have any income tax payday or anything to look forward to. So basically, anytime they go over their means, they put it on their credit cards. And right now they have $24,000 in credit card debt. And in order to get rid of that credit card debt, just paying the minimum, it would take them 36 years. And like I was saying, they fight about this. Julie blames Jacob, Jacob blames Julie. And, you know, who knows who's at fault? That's for y'all to decide. You know, you can take a lot of creative license with this project because a lot of the questions are unanswered. But what you do need to know is that they are not real interested in hurting. They're willing to make small sacrifices. But, you know, they feel like they have a good job. They both work hard. And they want you to help them solve their problem with a minimum of pain, but yet getting to their goals as quickly as possible. So far, what you have done is you have gotten the terms for them on a low-interest consolidation loan, and that'll put all their credit card debt into one single payment. And you need to make sure that you determine which payment plan is best for them. The couple, you've had them go home for the last 3 months and just write down everything they spent their money on. And you have now a monthly average of when, where, and why they spend their money. And your plan will be to reduce their monthly expenditures enough to pay all of their bills, reduce their credit card debt in 1 to 6 years, develop a contingency savings account. You'll see that the research says that you should have 6 months worth of income in savings on hand in a kind of a readily accessible cash format for emergencies. Now, I don't really know anyone that does have 6 months of money on hand, but you know that's what they counsel. Actually, I do know a couple that have 6 months, but I think you should at least have a couple months on hand to meet those goals. I guess it would depend on how much your monthly income was, how much you would have on hand. But when the car breaks down, when you need a new dishwasher, you need a new washing machine, you're supposed to have the money to pay for that in savings. And then the couple has already determined how much they need for their new dream home. They need to get a $165,000 loan with $10,000 down. Now, in order to get financing, they need the $10,000. You have to pay some amount down. They don't qualify for any zero down financing, and in order to get a good interest rate, they need to have, 10,000, which is less than the 20% a lot of people have. But he's able to get this through his credit union. Okay, and their financing will cost them the same as their monthly rent once they get going. And they're going to have an escrow. That means you don't have to worry about paying taxes and insurance. That will come out of their escrow account. So they're ready to purchase as soon as they can get their $10,000 down. And there may be a tax advantage to purchasing as well. So that may help them. You might want to look into that, because they may save a little money if they get to deduct the interest on their loan. Okay, like I said, there is a table of a 1-year payment. That's right here. And what you need to do is figure out if they can afford to pay the $2,032 a month or the $386 a month. And it gives you the year of the loan and the interest rate that will be charged. And this is through their credit union, and this is locked in. All you have to do is determine with them how much they're going to make. And right here you have Julie and Jacob make $116,000 per year in gross income. Now remember, gross income is before taxes and insurance and retirement and all of those things. Jacob's job in the oil field services industry, and he takes home $5,542 each month. And Julie works for the school district, but because she works for the school district and she can get a better rate on the family insurance than he used to get, she basically pays for all of their insurance and dental and eye. So all of that comes out of her salary. So her take home is much smaller. She makes much less too, but she takes home only $963. They have 6 credit cards, as I told you. Their minimum payment on their credit card right now, when you add them all up, is $434. His truck, which he bought recently, sometime last year, is a Ford F-250. He traded in his old truck, and now he has a $656 monthly payment. Julie drives an older 2010 Suburban, which the couple bought new, and her payment is $560 a month. They both have several months left until they're paid off. The couple likes to eat out at least once a week, but if you look at their average, they eat out practically twice a week or take home. And one of their hobbies is that they like to shop at Walmart. So on Friday night or Saturday morning, as a family, they go shopping at Walmart. And it's kind of an entertainment thing. So that's it about their money. If you'll look on the following page, page 3, you have their monthly income, and that's Jacob's and Julie's, and then their expenses. Now you're going to analyze what they're spending money on and figure out ways you can help them save money, ways you can help them maybe do better with the money they have. And you're allowed to take some creative license with this. You're allowed to have those fake conversations with the couple about, what they're willing to do and not do with your partner. But when you make those assumptions, they need to be reasonable, given the parameters that you have in the project. So you have the basics of it. You're going to actually now sit down and figure out where you can save them some money, how you can start saving them up money to buy a house, how you can get them from overspending $200 a month, because remember they're spending more than they make right now with all of their payments and everything going out. And then you're going to come up with a budget. Now, you do not have to use the budget that we used in the Drake family budget, but it is an example for you. You know, where we had them, where you had the income and the total income and the expenses, or just the income and expenses. And then you could do the two savings plans. You know, a savings plan for one would be towards their home, and then the savings plan for two would be their contingency, or, you know, reverse that, their contingency in their home. You can decide if you want them to pay off things first, if you want them to get a contingency going first, if you want to meet all of those goals at once. That's part of the thinking and decision-making process that you'll need to go through. Now, if you'll look on the second page attached to yours, you have basically a grading rubric. And the demographics is the sheet that you will need to fill out. You'll need to type in your team name, which your team member's name, which is your first and last name, and your team number, which is the group that you're assigned in the Blackboard, and then the instructor's name, which in my class will be Simonson. And then over here, what type of class did you take? Now, this is all for statistical purposes. All we will be using this data for, your name will be taken off of it. This data will go into our program improvement plan, which we try to make our classes better. What we're testing on right now is to see how well students are actually understanding how to use spreadsheets in a real application, you know, once they get out of this class. And then we're also testing on how well they're able to use the communication tools in Word to write up an executive summary to explain their spreadsheet. So, okay, we're going to go here to our spreadsheet. You're going to put in your name 1 and your name 2. The delivery method, face-to-face. So you're the internet class, so your delivery method would be 3. Okay? Gender, teammate 1. Well, if you're a male, you'd put in 1. If you're female, you'd put in 2. And teammate 2, the gender would be whatever you are. I'm going to say male for this one. Ethnicity, Hispanic, white, mixed, or other. It's whichever one you want to pick. Just choose one, and it's teammate 1 and teammate 2. Now, dual credit. If you are in high school taking this class for dual credit, the answer would be yes. For most of you, the answer will be no. Okay, and that's all you need to fill out. You need to put in teammate 1, teammate 2, the delivery method, which is going to be for y'all internet, which I typed the 3 in the wrong place. I'm sorry. Okay, see, over here. And we'll put the internet back in. Have you noticed that I always seem to do something like that? Me too. Okay, now to see how you're graded. Basically, this is a grading rubric. You're going to do an executive summary of your spreadsheet. An executive summary is a 1-page report that will go in the top of your spreadsheet. It's written in Word, and it needs to be a concise document that explains what your spreadsheet is about. So it's a spreadsheet working on a family budget, and it needs to explain what decision-making process that you made. For example, on Diane and Glenn here, we have decided that their car payment is unrealistic. So we went into their family budget and we changed that because that is never going to buy them the car that they want to drive. So we said you need to increase that. But they were working from a surplus, but they weren't realistic in our opinion. So your situation is going to be different. And the other thing, we don't think that they included eating out, which we know they do. That they go out, they both buy Starbucks every day. So we need to include that in here if they're going to do that, because it's not realistic for them to have a budget that they can't follow. So in their case, we're adding information into it. We're saying, okay, Diane, that's fine, but right now you have 187 days last year that you charged to Starbucks, when you did the drive-through in the morning. So, are you really going to cut that out completely, or are you going to continue getting your coffee? That kind of question. Well, in the executive summary, you're going to clarify what adjustments you made to their budget and how you came up with it and what your thought processes were. But it needs to be brief and concise. And then you also need to talk about what you've come up with for a savings plan. Now, in this particular workbook, everything's done on one sheet. Yours does not have to be done on one sheet, but it's just letting you know that that's one way you can do it. So we're going to go back to the rubric. So the executive summary, the mechanics. Well, a 1 is going to be 0. You're not going to get any credit for that. A 2 is not passing. 3 is a B. 4 is an A, 100%. So when you're coming along here, you can self-grade yourself, but you remember the instructor will actually do the grading. But you can self-grade your team and tell us what you think you're going to get. Okay, you think that you did a pretty good job, but you may have had some flaws. Hopefully you're never going to put that your executive summary was incomprehensible. But, we might read it and think it was. Hopefully that you're going to get up here in the 4 range for that. That's easy to read, easy to follow. Thinking skills. This is your ability to use the information that you've learned in the class about budgeting, about using the spreadsheets, but also how well you apply your own existing knowledge and skills to a problem, your problem-solving ability. Clearly demonstrated that they wanted to maximize the benefit to the couple. Okay, well that's a good score. And you keep going. Accuracy. Now this is applying it. Oh wait, I went down too far. Application to the spreadsheet. Now you can have a perfect executive summary and forget to talk about the budget at all. You need to go back and refer to what you're doing on the spreadsheet. And hopefully you will all do that. And you keep going. You have your budget worksheet now that you're going to be scored on. The design of it, was it suitable? You had some level of thought that you put into it. It was user-friendly, easy to read. You used tabs or comments and color coding with a few errors, but still a good project. Or it was excellent, no errors. I'm going to put 3. Accuracy, you didn't use the correct data. You did not justify your use of different data. I mean, if you went out and found them a different price on something, you need to state that where you got it from. You use the correct data accurately. Sometimes you go in and you're estimating. Your estimates may be close but not quite right. If you get the 4, that means you used the data correctly, you estimated correctly, you used the proper formulas correctly when you were coming up with your calculations, and that would be getting you a 4. Oops. And we'll go over here and give you the 4. Now, using the formulas. If you just type up a budget and don't use formulas, you're not going to get credit. The point of using spreadsheets is that you want to have the interactive ability, so that when I come back here to the Drake budget, when I say, oops, Diane didn't work summer school, or she did work summer school, that when I change it here, it needs to be in formula form where it changes throughout the spreadsheet. Now, that's if you put it this way. But you have to have formulas. You cannot just go in and type in numbers that you used a calculator for. And if you don't believe me that that happens, I had a student that did an entire spreadsheets class using a calculator as his main method of and his work was beautiful, but it didn't serve the purpose of using a spreadsheet. Okay, you had formulas, but you had errors in them. You used the formulas correctly, but maybe you didn't use the best formula, or you made it harder to follow, or too many steps, or you made it where you had to enter the data multiple times. Remember up here on this one, you were supposed to put how much you were transferring to home, and then down here under transfer to home, this was supposed to actually be a formula. And we use the absolute reference of that formula using the dollar signs, $sign L, $10. Well, if you have something like that, you're using the correct formula. You're using the easiest formula to find, rather than coming down here and typing in 500 each time. So whichever is most appropriate is what that one means. Okay, we're going to go back. So it used, so you could get that you had good but not great. Use of formulas, maybe you took more steps than you needed. Maybe it made it a longer process. So you could get good but not great. And down here, the next one is the thinking skills. The team demonstrated no clear thought processes to developing the budget. Well, you have to think about it. You're not just going to go in there and say you did X and this is how you save the day and that's it. You need to think through the budgeting process and really analyze the data. You attempted to do it, would get you 2. You clearly attempted to maximize it, or the 4. So clearly attempted is what we're going to give you here. And on this one, on this last one, this is for you to put in yourself. Group points assigned by teams. Now on this one, don't give yourself a 4 just because you want a 4, because you'll get the credit for this one, the full credit, no matter what you put. But we want you to put in if you work with your partner, or if one person ended up doing this project on their own. And in that case, you'd put a 1. This is more to score how well the teamings worked. And this is something that we just want to analyze. So go ahead and give the real score. Don't worry that it's going to affect your grade. The team had significant problems in working together. You might have problems based on being, just only on the internet. And that wouldn't be the fault of anyone. It would be, maybe we need to give you better tools. The team worked well together, but there was room for improvement. Once again, maybe you need more tools. And then, of course, the team worked well together and would like to work together on every project they ever had. That, again, would be... Okay, now you see here is actually your grade. You get the actual grade of 90.25, so you ended up with an A on the project. And since this is a test grade in my class, it will count twice. And that would be excellent if you got that. But if not, there will be other things that can pull this up, so don't worry if you end up with a lower score. Basically, on the budget, you're able to come up with any kind of format you want for that budget. What I gave you is just a starting guideline of what they actually spend on. And this is their income and their expenses. Now you can group these, but think about it. What should you group them as? You can adjust these if you think something's too high. Pretty much you're not going to be able to change their rent. It's a year-long lease. But other than that, there are some things that you could do within the budget to reduce overall what they're spending on. You do need to come up with some way to save enough money to pay off this loan, to save $10,000 for a home payment, and to develop a contingency, a savings account, which is 2 to 6 months of their take-home salary. So you want to save up, over $6,000 times 2. So, almost $12,000 or a little bit more than $12,000 for their take-home contingency budget. So you have quite a goal ahead of you. If any of you are like me, as soon as you get a few extra dollars in the bank, it's time to go shopping. Well, that's not what this project is about. And really, you're going to be helping Jacob and Julie out, but hopefully you're going to be helping each other out, because their debts are not unrealistic debts. I have been working on budgets for a long time with students, just as part of my class, and I've seen people spend money in ways that is not necessarily the best use of their money or time, and it ultimately isn't making them happy either. Because like I said, the number one thing people fight about in marriage is money. So you're going to come help save this marriage with your partner. When you finish the spreadsheet, on the front, you are going to put either as a separate worksheet within the budget, or as a separate workbook, this demographic sheet and this grading rubric sheet. When you've completed it, submit them both in Blackboard under the assignment tab that's called the project assignment. So that's what you're going to do. Hopefully you will help out Julie and Jacob. I would appreciate it. They're a nice couple, and they've got nice kids, and they would really like for you to help them. Thank you, and if you have questions about this project, go ahead and post them to the discussion board so everyone can see the questions and the answer. It'll be kind of like the frequently asked questions discussion. Okay, bye-bye.